There is a truth few people dare to face. Most of the fear in this life does not come from poverty, nor from failure. It comes from dependence. Dependence on someone to feel safe. Dependence on a job to feel worthy. Dependence on approval to feel that we exist. And when the thing you depend on disappears, you collapse. Not because you are weak, but because you were never taught how to stand on your own. Miyamoto Musashi, the greatest swordsman in Japanese history, never said that a person must live alone, but he taught things far more difficult. Never allow anyone to decide your fate. Not a teacher, not reputation, not circumstances. Musashi lived most of his life in poverty, without family, without status, without the protection of any lord, yet he was never controlled. Because he understood a principle that even today very few truly grasp. True freedom does not come from having many people to rely on, but from needing no one at all. When you need someone in order to exist, you fear losing them. When you need something in order to live, it commands you, and when you need the world's approval, you live by other people's rules. We are taught how to go to school, how to work, how to earn money, how to build relationships, but almost no one teaches us how to learn everything, so we depend on no one. No one teaches us how to train the mind so we don't fall apart when we are abandoned. No one teaches us how to stand firm when no one is standing beside us. Musashi did. He learned the sword, but he did not live by the sword. He learned how to win. But he did not become addicted to victory. He learned from enemies, from nature, from failure, from solitude. And most importantly, from himself. He did not learn to become the strongest in the eyes of others. He learned so that no one could manipulate him, whether enemy or circumstance. Today, many people learn, but they learn for recognition. They learn for salary, they learn for praise, and therefore they remain dependent. When no one praises them, they lose motivation. When no one guides, they stop. When support disappears, they panic. Life philosophy does not exist to give you more information. This channel exists to help you rethink how you live. To help you understand this, learning is not about becoming a better cog in someone else's machine. It is about never becoming a cog at all. This series is not for those seeking short-term motivation. Not for those who want comforting words, and certainly not for those who only want reassurance. It is for those who are tired of relying on others, for those who want to stand firm even when no one is there, and for those who understand this truth. If you do not learn independence from within, sooner or later life will force you to learn it through pain. In this video, we'll walk through the spirit of Miyamoto Musashi. Not to dominate others, but to need no one. Learn skill, but do not become enslaved by them. Learn knowledge, but do not be chained by credentials. Learn how to be human, so that even if you lose everything, you still have yourself. If you are in a season where everything feels fragile, if you have ever felt fear at the thought of facing life alone, or if deep down you know it is time to stand up on your own, without waiting for someone to pull you up, stay. And if the ideas in this video touch something within you, do not rush to agree and do not rush to reject them. Simply listen until the end, because sometimes a true idea does not come to comfort us. It comes to wake us up. Subscribe to Life Philosophy if you want to continue walking with ideas that are deep, uncompromising, and free of illusion. Ideas rooted in truth, discipline, and inner freedom. Now let us begin, not by relying on anyone else, but by learning to master ourselves. Part Moat. Learning so you are not abandoned when life changes direction. Life does not warn you when everything is about to change. There is no notification, no signal, no time to prepare. Things simply shift. A job that once felt secure suddenly disappears. A relationship that once supported you turns distant. A skill that once sustained your life quietly loses its value. And in that moment, many people discover a painful truth. They are not destroyed by failure. They are destroyed because they do not know what to do next. Miyamoto Musashi lived in an era where war, chaos, and betrayal were part of everyday life. Today you might be honored. Tomorrow you could be discarded. Today you might be victorious. Tomorrow you could be wandering alone. But Musashi did not fear this, not because he was invincible, but because he never placed his life in the hands of circumstance. Musashi understood a simple principle. If you know only one path, you will panic when that path collapses. If you possess only one ability, you will tremble when that ability is no longer needed. And if you learn only to serve the present, you will be abandoned when the future arrives. Many people today learn only to be just enough. Enough for their current job, enough to keep their position, enough to avoid being replaced. For now, but the world does not reward just enough. It respects those who can adapt. Learning is not about showing how much you know. It is about preparing for the day when everything familiar disappears. the day you can no longer do the same work, the day you can no longer rely on the same relationships, the day there is no one left to lean on. This may sound pessimistic, but it is simply reality. Musashi's spirit teaches us this. Do not learn to win a single battle. Learn so you do not lose your entire life. A person who knows only one thing may win today, but the one who learns many things survives in the long run. And survival in Musashi's philosophy does not mean clinging on. It means remaining in control. Look around you. How many people are abandoned not because they are incompetent, but because they refuse to learn something new? They were once skilled, once respected, once secure, but the world changed. Technology shifted, needs evolved, and they stayed still. Standing still in a moving world is the fastest way to be left behind. Learning is not only about acquiring a trade. It is about learning how to think, learning how to see beyond the present, learning to ask yourself, if everything disappears tomorrow, what do I still fear? But to create preparedness, Musashi never placed all his faith in a single sword. He studied multiple weapons, strategy, terrain, the human mind. He observed nature, the rhythm of wind, water, and time itself. Because he understood this truth, the one who relies on a single weapon will die by it when conditions change. Today, our swords are no longer made of steel. They are our careers, our skills, our relationships, our reputation. And just like in Musashi's time, if you rely on only one sword, you place yourself in danger. Learning everything does not mean chasing trends or collecting shallow knowledge. It means building a wide enough foundation so that when one door closes, you are not facing a wall. So that when you are abandoned, you do not panic. So that when no one supports you, you can still move forward. Those who refuse to learn blame life for being unfair. Those who choose to learn understand. Life is not unfair. It simply does not wait. Musashi chose lifelong learning not to become superior to others, but to avoid becoming a victim of circumstance. He learned to preserve his right to choose. And that is what many people today have lost, the freedom to decide the direction of their own lives. When you learn enough, you do not fear being abandoned. When you learn enough, you do not fear losing your place. When you learn enough, you do not need to cling to anyone in order to survive. Much of human fear comes from knowing this deep inside. If the thing we rely on disappears, we will not know where to go, and so we change. We fear starting again, but Musashi's philosophy is brutally honest. If you do not choose to learn while you still have options, life will force you to learn through pain. Learning so you are not abandoned is not ambition, it is responsibility. Responsibility to yourself. The journey begins quietly, without applause, without validation. It begins in the moments when you choose to learn one more skill, refine one more perspective, strengthen one more layer of understanding, even when no one is watching, because those who understand this truth know one thing for certain. We do not learn to be kept today. We learn so we are never discarded tomorrow. Part Musashi word, learning, never living by the sword. There is a paradox few people ever recognize. The very thing that once saved you can later become the thing that imprisons you. A skill that once carried you forward, if clung to for too long, turns into a chain. A success that once gave you stability, if treated as a permanent shelter, blinds you to change. Miyamoto Musashi understood this earlier than most. He learned the sword, but he never lived by the sword. He trained relentlessly, not to depend on it, but to master it as a tool, never as an identity, never as a final refuge. Had Musashi mastered only one style, he would have died young. Had he trusted only one blade, that blade would have betrayed him the moment condition change. Instead, he studied many schools, many techniques, many ways of thinking. He learned strategy, psychology, terrain, and the rhythm of nature itself, because he knew one rule that decides survival. Never allow a single thing to determine your fate. Today, people also learn swords, just not made of special, a title, a specialized skill, a relationship carefully built over years. They become excellent. They gain recognition. They succeed, then quietly they begin to believe, I am this thing. That is the moment dependence is born. When you tie your identity to one skill, you fear losing it. When your value comes from one role, you tremble when that role weakens. And when your life is built on a single path, you panic when that path collapses. Musashi never allowed this trap. He was skilled with the sword, but he refused to let the sword define him. He knew victory, but he never became addicted to it. He understood a hard truth most people avoid. The truly free person is the one who can let go of the thing they do best. This lesson is difficult to accept. We are taught to hold tightly to our strengths, to protect what gives us stability, and that advice is not wrong. What is missing is the other half. Learning how to walk away when necessary. We learn how to use tools, but not how to release them. Musashi's philosophy is unforgiving but clear. If you cannot walk away from the thing you excel at, you do not control it. It controls you. Modern life is filled with examples of this truth. A person who knows only one profession collapses when that profession becomes obsolete. A person who lives through one relationship loses direction when it ends. A person who builds identity on a single platform falls when the platform changes. Not because they lack talent, but because they placed everything in one basket. Musashi did not. He prepared for the worst not through fear, but through breadth of ability. He did not learn to show off knowledge. He learned to avoid being cornered. When one approach failed, he shifted. When one method no longer worked, he stepped back, observed, and adapted. This philosophy sounds modern. Don't rely on a single skill, a single income, a single path. But Musashi lived it centuries ago through real danger, real blood, and real consequence. So what does learning the sword without living by it mean today? It means learn a profession, but do not let it chain you. Develop skills, but do not allow them to become your prison. Respect what you are good at, but always preserve your ability to begin again. True strength is not never losing what you excel at. True strength is remaining upright even after it is gone. Only those who are not dependent on a single thing can do that. Musashi never needed to prove who he was through his sword. His value came from adaptability, clarity, and the ability to command circumstances rather than be driven by them. That is why wherever he went and whatever situation he faced, he retained control. This is the reflection life philosophy invites you to sit with, slowly and honestly. Are you mastering your tools, or are you becoming their prisoner? Are you using your skills, or are you living off them? And if tomorrow the thing you are best at disappear remains, what running the sword is necessary? But never live by the sword, because the moment you can set it down and still move forward, that is the moment you are truly free. Part by learning from everything, including failure. There is one thing people avoid more than poverty and loneliness: failure. Not because failure is unbearably painful, but because it forces us to face an uncomfortable truth, that we were not prepared enough, not aware enough, not skilled enough. And by avoiding it, many people lose the greatest learning opportunity of their lives. Miyamoto Musashi did not fear failure, nor did he glorify it. He treated failure as a strict but honest teacher. When he lost, he did not justify himself. When he made mistakes, he did not shift the blame. He observed where he hesitated, where he grew careless, where he misread the situation. To Musashi, every stumble was a lesson paid for with real cost. And precisely because of that, it carried more weight than any comfortable advice. Many people learn only when things go smoothly. When they succeed, they memorize the method. But when they fail, they search for excuses to forget. They blame circumstances, other people, timing, or luck, and then move on without carrying any lesson forward. Failure in that case becomes meaningless. Musashi was different. He learned from every outcome, victory or defeat. Because he understood this, success tells you what worked, but failure tells you what no longer fits. And in a world that never stops changing, knowing what no longer fits is often more valuable than knowing what once worked. In modern life, we face failure constantly. Even if we rarely call it by name, a project collapses, a relationship ends, a decision proves wrong, an opportunity slips away. Yet instead of stopping to learn, many people rush forward, afraid that pausing would make them look weak. In truth, the refusal to learn is the real weakness. Learning from failure is not about self-punishment or dwelling in regret. It is the ability to separate emotion from experience. To view an event as a problem to be understood, not a wound to be hidden. Musashi never allowed emotion to control reflection. He did not ask, "Why does this hurt?" He asked, "What did I overlook?" This is the difference between the learner and the dependent. The dependent fears failure because they need a flawless image to be accepted. The learner accepts failure because they need truth to grow. Failure also teaches one of life's most important lessons: limits. When everything goes well, we easily overestimate ourselves. We believe we are more capable of control, more prepared than we truly are. Only through failure do we discover where our real boundaries lie. And from those boundaries, real learning begins. Musashi did not learn blindly. He learned precisely where he was weak. If his reaction was slow, he trained speed. If he misjudged opponents, he refined observation. If his mind wavered, he returned to discipline of the mind. Failure revealed what needed to be learned, and a serious learner never ignored that signal. In today's world, success is celebrated while the learning beneath it is often ignored. Musashi offers a different perspective. Success is not a reward, it is a consequence of learning correctly. And correct learning almost always begins with mistakes. Some people repeat the same failures their entire lives, not because they lack intelligence, but because they refuse to learn from the past. They change environments, change people, change circumstances, but never change perspective. As a result, failure follows them everywhere, merely wearing a different mask. Learning from everything, including failure, is how you break that cycle. When you take responsibility for your own learning, you no longer need to be rescued. You do not need someone else to decide for you, guide you, or absorb consequences on your behalf. You grow from your own scars. Musashi did not seek an easy life. He sought clarity, and clarity only comes when one dares to look directly at what did not go as planned. In his philosophy, failure is not the enemy. It is a mirror that does not lie. Life philosophy invites you to remember this. If you learn only from success, you will learn slowly. But if you learn from failure, you will learn deeply. And those who learn deeply are not easily crushed by circumstance, because they understand that every fall is also a form of goodness. No one escapes failure, but not everyone knows how to turn failure into strength. When you can do that, you no longer fear mistakes, no longer fear trying, and no longer fear starting again, because you know one thing with certainty. Whatever the outcome, you will walk away with a lesson. And when you learn from everything, even the most painful experiences, you begin to see that nothing in life is truly wasted. Only those who refuse to learn end up wasting their lives. Part 1 needs to lead you. Become your own teacher. There is a subtle trap many people fall into without realizing it. They believe they cannot move forward because they have not yet met the right guide. No mentor, no perfect teacher. No clear signal from life. And so they wait. While they wait, time moves on. Life does not. Miyamoto Musashi did not have a single master who guided him through his entire life. He learned from many sources, many people, many encounters, many situations. But more importantly, he learned by observing for himself, testing for himself, and drawing his own conclusion. Musashi understood this clearly. If you can only walk when someone holds your hand, you will never learn how to walk on your own. Today, many people fall into a refined form of dependence on advice. They ask constantly, listen, read constantly, yet hesitate to decide. They want certainty before taking action. They want someone to confirm they are on the right path, and in seeking confirmation, they quietly surrender their power. Musashi did not search for certainty, and clarity never comes before action. It comes after it. No path reveals itself fully before you walk it. The road appears only beneath the feet of those who move. Becoming your own teacher does not mean rejecting the value of others. It means never handing the authority of your life to someone else. You may learn from teachers, books, and those who came before you, but the final responsibility must always remain yours. Musashi learned through close observation. He studied his opponents. He studied circumstances. He studied his own reactions. He never accepted theory if it could not stand in reality. When a method failed, he discarded it. When an approach proved effective, refined it. His learning was alive, never rigid, never dogmatic. In modern life, many people accumulate information. They speak, analyze sharply, quote endlessly. But when it is time to decide for themselves, they freeze, because they have never trained the most important skill of all. The ability to be their own teacher, to take responsibility for their choices. Learning without action creates the illusion of progress. Musashi understood that knowledge becomes power only when it is tested, and testing always carries risks. Those who fear mistakes will not experiment. Those who fear judgment will not choose their own path. But anyone who seeks mastery of life must accept both. There will be times when you are wrong, times when you regret your choices, yet those moments are precisely what shape the inner eye of a true teacher. The ability to recognize what fits you and what does not. No one can teach that in your place. Musashi never waited for permission to be different. He never asked for approval. He observed, reflected, adjusted, and continued forward. That self-command kept him from being pulled off course by praise and from being crushed by criticism. In a world overflowing with opinions and advice, preserving your own voice is a serious challenge. But if you do not learn to listen to yourself, you will spend your entire life living inside the voices of others, and that is one of the most dangerous forms of dependence. Dependence of thought. Becoming your own teacher is a lonely path, but it is a necessary one. There will be moments of doubt, moments when you wish someone else would decide for you. But every time you observe for yourself, think for yourself, and choose for yourself, you build a foundation no one can take away. Musashi believed that the strongest person is not the one with the most teachers, but the one who can learn from every situation, from victory and defeat, from right and wrong, from ease and hardship. When you learn this, life itself becomes your classroom. Life philosophy invites you to remember this truth. No one can live your life for you, and no one can learn in your place. You may listen widely, read deeply, and seek guidance, but in the end, only one person can walk your path. And that person must be you. When you no longer need someone to lead you, you stop fearing that you might be lost. Because every step, right or wrong, becomes a lesson. And once you learn to be your own teacher, you are no longer dependent on anyone to continue your journey. Part num. Learning so do not depend emotionally on others. There is a form of dependence more dangerous than relying on money or skills: emotional dependence. It is quite subtle and hard to detect. But once it takes root, it slowly weakens a person. You begin to need others to feel worthy. You need a look, a message, a sign of approval to feel at peace. And when those signals disappear, your inner world begins to shake. Miyamoto Musashi understood this clearly. Anyone led by emotion can never truly command their own fate. In combat, a single moment of emotional disturbance can cost a life. In everyday living, that disturbance may not kill you immediately, but it erodes you over time, filling you with fear of loss, fear of abandonment, fear of not being loved. Emotional dependence often begins with ordinary things. You feel good when praised. You feel hurt when criticized. You feel safe when someone is present, anxious when they are silent. Over time, you stop asking, "What do I think?" and start asking, "What do they think of me?" From that point on, you live by the emotional river of others, no longer by your own. Musashi did not teach coldness. He taught clarity. Clarity means understanding that emotions are signals, not commands. Emotions come and go. If you act on every emotional wave, you will be dragged in all directions, never steady, never grounded. During his years of wandering, Musashi faced loneliness, contempt, and rejection. There was no cheering crowd, no steady encouragement. Had he needed validation to continue, he would have stopped long ago. Instead, he learned to place his center within himself. He observed emotions the way one observes the weather. Storms may pass, but the sky remains. Learning not to depend emotion does not mean denying emotion. It means learning not to let emotion define your worth. You may feel sadness, and that is human. You may feel hurt, and that is natural. But you do not allow sadness to become a verdict on who you are. You do not allow someone else's silence to become proof that you are worthless. Many people lose their freedom because they need others to fill an inner emptiness. They fear being alone. They fear silence. They fear facing unanswered questions within themselves. And out of fear they cling to relationships, to attention, to short-term comfort. Yet the more they cling, the weaker they become. Musashi trained the mind before the sword. He practiced remaining still amid chaos, maintaining his breath when provoked, and refusing to react impulsively to external stimuli. In modern life, this discipline looks like not reacting immediately to praise or criticism, not replying when emotions are high, not making life decisions in moments of impulse. There is a simple rule, but transformative. Let emotions pass through, then act. When you are angry, do not speak. When you are sad, do not decide. When you are excited, do not promise. This brief pause creates space for wisdom to appear. And where wisdom exists, freedom follows. Emotional dependence also makes people easy to manipulate. Whoever controls your emotions can steer your actions. A well-timed compliment, a prolonged silence, a vague nod, these can be enough to redirect your path. Musashi avoided this by never handing the keys of his emotions to anyone, but he was not led. Learning emotional independence is learning self-regulation. You learn to notice an emotion as it arises, name it, understand its cause, and allow it to settle. You neither suppress nor feed it. You observe it. That observation creates a healthy distance between you and the emotion, a distance sufficient to keep you from being swept away. When you no longer need someone else to confirm your value, life becomes lighter. You can love without attachment. You can connect without clinging. You can stay. And you can leave when necessary, not out of coldness but out of self-respect. Life philosophy invites you to remember this. Emotional freedom does not come from having someone always beside you. It comes from being able to be with yourself. When you can calm your own mind, silence no longer frightens you. When you can stand on your own, the changing moods of others no longer shake you. Learning not to depend emotionally is a long process, requiring discipline and honesty. But its reward is clear. You are no longer pulled by praise or blame, no longer bound by the presence or absence of anyone else. You live by your own rhythm. And when emotion is no longer the reins, you finally hold the steering wheel of your own life. Part Sao, learning to be alone without feeling lonely. There is a quiet fear that many human decisions. The fear of being alone, not the fear of lacking people, but the fear of facing oneself. the fear of silence, the fear of empty space, the fear of unanswered questions. And because of this fear, people fill their time with noise, shallow connections, and unnecessary business. Yet the more they fill the space, the larger the emptiness inside becomes. Miyamoto Musashi chose the opposite path. He accepted solitude as part of his discipline. Not to escape the world, but to understand it at its roots. Being alone allowed him to see his thoughts clearly, recognize reactive habits, and adjust the smallest movements of the mind. For Musashi, solitude was not deprivation, it was space. Many people confuse being alone with loneliness. Loneliness is the feeling of disconnection even in a crowd. Being alone is a conscious state, where you connect deeply with yourself. When you cannot tolerate being alone, you search for others to fill the void. And from there, dependence begins. Emotional dependence, presence tense to tension dependence. Musashi did not need crowds for validation. He needed stillness to sharpen awareness. In still, unnecessary thoughts reveal themselves. Hidden fears surface. Unconscious desires become visible. And once seen clearly, they lose their power to control. Learning to be alone is not withdrawing from the world. It is learning not to be pulled by it. When you can sit without stimulation, you begin to command your attention. When attention is mastered, the mind becomes less scattered. And when the mind is less scattered, action becomes precise. In modern life, solitude has become rare. Empty moments are filled with screens. Silence is covered by sound. We grow accustomed to immediate reaction, replying to messages, scrolling endlessly, chasing distraction. But constant reaction weakens the inner world. You slowly lose the ability to remain still. Musashi trained this before counterattack. He understood that those who cannot endure silence will panic without stimulation. In combat, that is fatal. In life, it becomes the root of rushed decisions, rushed love, rushed promises, rushed surrender. Being alone teaches you to distinguish real needs from habits. You learn to listen to the inner voice, not the voice of fear, but the voice of clarity. Gradually, you no longer need someone beside you to feel okay. You are okay because you understand yourself. Solitude has discipline. At first, it is uncomfortable. Unprocessed thoughts rise. Avoided memories appear. But if you do not flee, if you remain long enough, the mind settles. And in that settling, order emerges. Musashi used solitude to simplify. He shed excess desires, useless comparisons, and the need for validation. When he no longer needed to prove himself, his choices became freer. When he no longer needed to fill time, his training became deeper. Learning to be alone is also learning healthy connection. When you do not need others to escape yourself, you can meet them whole. You love without attachment. You bond without clinging. You stay because you choose to, not because you are afraid. There is a clear sign of inner maturity. You do not rush to fill empty space. You allow it to exist, observe it, and listen to its message. That space is often an invitation, inviting you to return, to reorganize, and to choose with awareness. Life philosophy invites you to practice this simply. Spend time alone without consuming. No screens, no background music, no conversation, your breath. At first it may feel difficult, but every minute you remain still is a minute you reclaim command of your attention. When you command your attention, you are no longer pulled by crowds. When you command stillness, you no longer fear solitude. And when you no longer fear solitude, you are no longer easily manipulated. Musashi did not choose solitude to distance himself from people. He chose it to stand closer to truth. The truth about himself, his limits, and the path ahead. And that truth allowed him to re-enter the world with rare steadiness. Learning to be alone without feeling lonely is learning to stand firmly from within. When you can be alone and still feel complete, you enter every relationship with freedom, without demand, without fear of loss, without the need to be filled. And when you no longer fear being alone, you no longer fear anything that can be taken away. Part B. Learning discipline instead of waiting for motivation. There is a common illusion in modern life. Wait for motivation, then begin. People wait for inspiration, for the right mood, for a day that feels perfect. Time passes, motivation comes and goes, and many important things are never done. Meanwhile, discipline, uncelebrated, remains the foundation of all lasting achievement. Miyamoto Musashi did not live on motivation. He lived on discipline, not a harsh discipline meant to punish the self, but a steady discipline strong enough to act even when desire is absent. In combat, you cannot wait for inspiration. In training, you cannot wait for the right mood. Musashi understood this clearly. If you act only when you feel it, you will act very little. Motivation is an emotion, and emotions fluctuate. Today you feel energized, tomorrow you feel drained. If your life depends on motivation, it will rise and fall like waves. Discipline is different. Discipline is a contract with yourself to do what must be done, regardless of emotional state. Musashi built discipline through small actions repeated daily. Waking at a fixed hour, training consistently, observing each day. No need for approval. It was repetition that created depth, and depth created a strength that fleeting motivation never could. In modern life, many people underestimate the power of small daily actions. They seek big leaps, fast results, visible transformation. But Musashi taught that true progress is often silent. It does not excite, it does not announce success. It accumulates quietly, until one day the difference is undeniable. Discipline was also how Musashi preserved freedom. This sounds paradoxical, but self-imposed structure freed him from impulse. With a fixed training routine, he did not have to debate each day whether to practice. With clear principles, he was not pulled by temporary temptation. Discipline reduced decision fatigue, allowing energy to be spent where it mattered. Waiting for motivation often means waiting for others. Someone to push you, remind you, praise you. This creates another form of dependence. Discipline does the opposite. It returns control to you. You do not need to be pushed. You move on your own. There will be days of exhaustion, days of doubt, days when results are invisible. On those days, motivation is nearly zero. Discipline carries you through, not with excitement, but with rhythm. And that rhythm keeps you on the path long enough for results to emerge. Musashi treated training as part of life, not a project with an endpoint. When discipline becomes identity, I am someone who does this every day. There is no negotiation with the self. You simply act. This simplicity generates immense mental strength. Learning discipline does not mean pushing yourself beyond limits. It means learning how to design your environment so the right actions are easy and the wrong ones are difficult. Remove distractions. Arrange your space. Set fixed times. These ordinary choices determine whether you can remain consistent. Life philosophy wants you to remember this. You do not need more motivation, a system that is small, appropriate, and sustainable. Discipline does not need to be perfect. It needs to be continuous. Missing one day is not failure. Quitting is. Musashi did not become great because he was always motivated. He became great because he refused to let training depend on motivation. He trained when tired, when discouraged, when no one was watching, and it was those unseen days that made the difference. When you learn discipline, you learn to trust action over emotion. You learn to continue even when the path is unclear. You learn to accumulate rather than chase bursts of excitement, and over time a simple truth becomes clear. Discipline does not make life reliable. Motivation may start the journey. Discipline is what takes you to the destination, and when you no longer wait for motivation to act, you have taken a decisive step toward mastering yourself. Part-time, learn to speak less, observe more. There is a paradox in life. The more people speak, the more easily they reveal what they do not understand. The quieter they become, the clearer they see. Most mistakes do not come from knowing how to speak, but from speaking too soon, speaking before understanding, speaking to fill silence, speaking to assert the self. And each time we do, we lose the chance to observe. Miyamoto Musashi was renowned not only for his skill in combat, but for his ability to read situations. He did not rush to display strength, rush to strike, or rush to declare intent. He observed the opponent's breathing, foot, gaze, distance, and even what was left unsaid. In that silence, information revealed itself. In modern life, we are encouraged to speak often, to express opinions, to prove competence, to avoid being overlooked. But speaking often comes with quick reactions, and quick reactions rarely coexist with deep understanding. When you speak constantly, you stop listening. When you stop listening, you stop seeing. Learning to speak less is not about become distant or mysterious. It is about prioritizing observation. Observation gathers evidence before conclusions. Observation gives you time to commotion before reaction. Observation helps you see context, not fragments. Musashi understood that revealing yourself too early means losing the initiative. In combat, a taunt, an extra movement, a hurried glance, each is a signal to the opponent. In life, excessive speech works the same way. You reveal weaknesses, needs, fears, and even leverage that others can use to influence you. Silence, when disciplined, becomes a shield. It creates distance to see the whole picture. It keeps you from being dragged by the crowd's wrath. It allows you to choose words, speaking when necessary, remaining silent when wise. Observing more also helps you discern human nature. Words can be polished. Behavior is harder to fake for long. When you watch how people react under pressure, how they behave when there is no benefit, how they change when praised or criticized, you learn far more than any introduction could tell you. In stillness, you also observe yourself. You notice the urge to speak quickly to prove, to be acknowledged. Recognizing these urges is the first step toward not being ruled by them. Musashi trained inner observation before observing opponents. Because one who does not understand the self cannot understand others. Speaking less gives words weight. When you do not speak all the time, people listen when you do. When speech is chosen, it becomes a decision, not a reflex. And decisions carry far greater impact than reactions. In modern settings, meetings, social media debates, silence may be mistaken for weakness. Musashi offers a different standard. Strength is not measured by volume of speech, but by precision of action. The strong act at the right moment. They do not talk excessively. Learning to speak less is also learning not to win through words. Winning arguments feeds the ego and prolongs conflict. Musashi chose to win through position, timing, and effectiveness. In life, winning than clear results ends disputes faster than any reasoning. Observing more requires patience. You must tolerate not responding immediately. You must endure the discomfort of not speaking yet. You must allow situations to reveal themselves. The reward is clarity. And when clarity arrives, decisions become simple. Life philosophy invites you to practice this. Before speaking, observe one more beat. Before responding, listen to one more sentence. Before concluding, check one more signal. These small pauses protect you from rushed mistakes and give you long-term advantage. Musashi did not use silence to hide. He used silence to calculate precisely. When the moment arrived, his actions were brief and decisive. That is the peak of restraint. Learning to speak less and observe more does not make you passive. It makes you act at a deeper level. You actively gather information, actively regulate emotion, actively choose timing. And when you act with the whole picture in hand. When you speak less, you hear more. When you observe more, you understand deeper. And when you understand deeply, you no longer need to speak much to earn respect. Parching, so you do not need recognition. There is an invisible thread that binds many people, the need for recognition, to be praised, to be acknowledged, seen. On the surface, this feels natural. But when recognition comes the main driver, it quietly steals your freedom. You begin choosing what earns approval instead of what is right. You say what sounds pleasant instead of what must be said, and slowly you start living through the eyes of others. Miyamoto Musashi did not walk this path. He understood a simple truth: whoever needs recognition will fear losing it, and fear leads to compromise. Musashi did not train the sword to receive applause. He trained to stand firmly. He did not need a crowd's approval to know he was on the right path. His measure was internal clarity and the effectiveness of his actions. The need for recognition often causes people to trade the long term for the short term. A compliment today can lead to a wrong decision tomorrow. You post to be noticed, speak to be acknowledged, act to be seen, but when the spotlight fades, if there is no foundation, emptiness follows. Musashi avoided this trap by training in silence. Where there are no spectators, no praise, truth. Not needing recognition does not mean dismissing other. It means learning not to let your value depend on external feedback. Praise and criticism come and go. If you build your house on the shifting sand of public opinion, it will collapse when the tide turns. Musashi built on rock, discipline, observation, and results. In modern life, social media amplifies the hunger for recognition. A single like can lift the mood. Silence can drag it down. This loop creates addiction. And addiction is dependence. Musashi taught a simple but difficult rule: do the right work even when no one is watching. When you do not need recognition, you speak less. But with greater precision. You move more slowly. But with greater depth. You choose difficult work because you know it is right, and you accept being misunderstood, not praised immediately. Because you trust the process, not applause. A unique freedom appears when the need for recognition fades. The freedom to choose. You can turn left while the crowd turns right. You can remain silent while others are loud. You can retreat even when victory seems near, if retreat is the correct move. Musashi did this. He did not need to prove himself at every moment. He conserved strength for when it mattered. Not needing recognition also makes you resilient. Praise and blame are unstable fuels. If you run on them, you will stop when the wind changes. When your fuel is discipline and a clear purpose, you go farther. Musashi understood that long roads are not for those who live on applause. They are for those who can endure silence. There is a powerful question for self-examination. If no one knew about this, would I still do it? If the answer is no, be cautious. You may be acting for attention, not value. Musashi acted for refinement. For daily refinement progress, even when slow. This is not easy. The instinct to be recognized is strong, but it can be trained. Trained by reducing performance and increasing practice. Trained by keeping some goals private. Trained by measuring progress with internal standards. Focus, precision, endurance, rather than external feedback. Life philosophy asks you to remember this. Recognition is a byproduct, not a goal. When you do the right work, recognition may come. or it may not. Either way, it does not change your direction. You continue because you chose the path, not because someone is watching. Musashi did not become great because he was recognized early. He became great because he did not need recognition to continue. He moved forward in silence long enough that when the light finally arrived, it only confirmed what already existed. It did not create it. When you learn not to need recognition, you take back the steering wheel. You no longer chase praise or fear criticism. You work by your own standards. And those standards, if built correctly, will take you where you need to go, even if the road is quiet. Not needing recognition does not make you cold. It makes you free. Free to do what is right. Free to walk forward when no one yet understands. And within that freedom you find a durable strength, one that does not require applause to exist. In the end, after everything we have walked through, one simple truth remains. Freedom is not having many choices. It is not being bound, not bound to a person, a skill, emotion, a compliment, or a fear. Freedom is the ability to stand firm when everything changes, to continue when no one pushes you forward, to remain calm when things arrive, and when they leave. Miyamoto Musashi did not teach people to escape the world. He taught them how to move through the world without being carried away by it. Learning everything is not for display, but so you are never forced to beg, not to surpass others, but so you do not need to rely on anyone. When you learn enough, you no longer fear loss. When you train enough, you no longer fear scarcity. When you understand, no longer fear silence. This journey is not loud. It unfolds on days no one sees, in early mornings when you rise without enthusiasm, in hours spent alone without screens, in moments of silence when speaking could earn quick attention, in choices to do what is right even when no praise follows. Each small decision like this places another stone into the foundation of freedom. You may not be praised. You may be misunderstood. You may feel slower than the crowd, but remember this: crowds move fast, free individuals move far. Musashi chose distance over speed. He chose inner strength so no wind could knock him down. If there is one measure to ask yourself each day, let it be this: did I do something today that made me less dependent on motivation, less dependent on praise, less dependent on others' presence, but consistently? Freedom is built from rhythm, not from sudden surges. Life philosophy does not promise comforting answers. It holds only one commitment: to walk alongside those who choose to master themselves. No soothing lies, only truth, discipline, and a path quiet enough for you to hear your own footsteps. If what you have heard makes you slow down, observe more carefully, and choose more conscious healing. Do not rush to share it. Do not rush to prove it. Let it settle into tomorrow's actions. Freedom begins with doing, not with speaking. We will meet again. In future episodes, Life Philosophy will continue exploring the principles of those who chose the difficult path: discipline over inspiration, stillness over noise, capability over promises. Each episode's a refinement, so you can sharpen yourself at your own pace. If you wish to continue this journey, stay. No urgency required, only consistency. And if one day you realize you no longer fear loss, no longer need recognition, no longer feel pulled by emotion, allow yourself a quiet smile. You are moving in the right direction. We will meet again on the next stretch of the path, not to seek new motivation, but to strengthen the freedom you already have.